Well, it's worthwhile to remind ourselves that the end of the Second World War led to a number of unintended consequences. One of them, of course, being the unconditional surrender of Germany and Japan, being an intended consequence of the war. But the aftermath and what that entailed actually did present some complications. One of which was that the Korean Peninsula had been occupied by the Japanese Empire since 1910 and had been subject to a rather brutal colonial rule, which details of which you can find elsewhere, but essentially meant that with the Japanese forces vacating, there was no government in waiting. So essentially, it, like Germany, was divided about halfway across, not by the lines of conquest as took place in Europe, but rather by agreement at the 30th parallel. So along the north was occupied by the Soviets, and for the south, the 30th parallel was occupied by the Americans. In the years intervening, there were there's no agreement on what a future independent Korea would look like, how that would be governed, what sort of systems would be in place. And so both the Soviet Union and the United States undertook to build and foster nationalists in North and South Korea, respectively, who fit their prescription or agenda of what an independent Korea might look like. Not just American, of course. Obviously, the Koreans were involved. North Korea, becoming the DPRK and becoming modeled on the kind of Soviet state-driven system. In the South, very much an anti-communist, nationalist structure, loosely democratic, we'll say, but they didn't have true democracy until some years later. But principally opposed to Soviet adventurism in the area, and so, but. North Korea maintained a lot of the material and mineral resources of Korea. The industrial capacity was largely focused in the north. The south was mostly agricultural and was driven by a number of conflicts that was, as it was not one-man rule or one-party rule, it was a bit more fractious. And so the North Korean leader, the great-grandfather of the present leader of North Korea, Kim Il-sung, devised a plan to push over the American garrison and the South Korean defenders and unite the peninsula as an independent country, albeit one under the North Korean system of government. And for that, he received backing from the Soviet leader at the time, Joseph Stalin, on a kind of cash on the barrelhead basis for aid. But it was widely interpreted by the West as being, Stalin's push into Korea as opposed to a Korean-led effort. So essentially, there was a period from 1945 to 1950 of a transition to a form of independence, albeit one guided by the various occupying powers, as well as two nationalist movements that came into conflict, with one leading the charge into an invasion, which started in June of 1950 and everything that followed.